So we're going to present thumbs to Heavenly Wilson, and we also are introducing Madam Maya Komorowska and her grandson, Jerzy.
Thank you very much.
And we give golden thumbs. Jerzy, will you translate for us, please? And tell Maya that these are a gift of our appreciation. It was a cast of my husband's thumb that he made many years ago. And now we have them at the place that made the Academy Awards make them, although they've switched to a different place now, but that's too complicated. And we are very happy for her to take it back to Warsaw. You will make the presentation too.
And Heavenly, we have your own personal thumb to, I hope, sit next to Scott's thumb in your house in LA. Here you go. Thank you so much.
Do zdjęcia. Tak, chodź. Jak powiedzieć wnuk?
Grandson.
And if you find a seat, this is a here. And we're introducing. You've met Professor Todd Rindelman from Seattle Pacific University, and he's going to join them. And also, I think you've met Jennifer Marin. She's the founder of the Alliance for Women Film Journalists.
These seating arrangements are not thought out in advance. We just sit down wherever. What a beautiful, powerful film. Maya, what's your reaction to seeing the film after so many years?
Brak słów.
There are no words to describe this.
To jest wielkie wzruszenie, że jestem tutaj. Jeżeli mogę, to chciałabym zacząć od podziękowania. Dam mojemu wnukowi, który studiuje filozofię po angielsku w Warszawie i który przyjechał, żeby mnie tłumaczyć.
Okay, so basically what she said is that she was greatly moved by this, but before we start, she would like to thank everybody who was involved in our trip here and our stay here. beginning with Chaz, who made it all possible, and she is still doing it. And of course Nate, and Andy, who was our contact in the US when we were still in Poland, and we were in touch with him, and he also made this everything possible. Of course, Heavenly, whose I believe was this idea that we should come here. This was her idea. Actually, my dad was supposed to be here. My dad was supposed to be here. I mean, my dad, I'm speaking for myself right now, was supposed to be here instead of me because he spent some time in his younger days at Scott's and Heavenly's house. And the friendship was so strong that it survived, even though we were all together in Poland and they were still here in the US. And but he came to me and told me that, son, maybe this is the time to pass the torch. And he sent me. So this is my first time. Be gentle with me, please.
Yeah, in case we didn't tell you, Jerzy is Maya's grandson.
Yeah, that's me. And we didn't finish thanking people yet, so there is also Ray, who hasn't been spoken of much, but he's been our help here and our friend here. And he's been driving us around wherever we wanted. He was bringing us gifts, books, and he even brought us to a shop to bring my grandmother a hair tie, because she was worried that she has a black suit but no black hair tie. And we spent an hour looking for it, so thank you, Ray. I believe I can see you back there.
Przypomniała mi się ta scena z tuszą, jak się nazywa? Sweet Race? Nie, tuszonka. Tak,
Sweet pork scene.
Myśmy się tak śmiały z Hanią, z moją mamą, tak się śmiałyśmy, że kamera na szczęście zatrzymała się. Myśmy nie mogły w ogóle nic grać, bo ta swinna tuszonka i to było tak śmieszne. I ta gumka to jest to samo.
Okay, this is very loose, but she remembers the scene from the film when they are trying to communicate, the three of them, by the table, talking about the sweet pork, and luckily the cameraman was smart enough to hold the camera then, because this was not planned. They were laughing for real, and this was real laughter because they couldn't take it. It was too good.
Heavenly, we talked when we decided to dedicate the festival to Scott. We talked about which film, you and I talked about which film we should show. Why did you want us to bring this particular film?
Well, does this work? Yeah. Scott had for years wanted them to have Year of the Quiet Sun in this festival, because he loved the film, and there is a lot more to say about that. I wish he was here, and I wish he was telling me what to say to you, but it's a film that I think it was well received when it came out throughout the United States and in Venice and in the New York Film Festival and in other places. But it could always get more and more audience. It deserves to have more and more audience, I think. Its theme is so universal. Everybody loves lovers, and when I see Scott play that, it's so touching to me, and particularly when it comes to the end, when he's at the station at Friedrichstrasse waiting for Amelia to come, and she isn't coming. And he sings that song, Amazing Grace. I think it's so extraordinary that the festival had that film with Aretha Franklin. You know, that was called Amazing Grace. And I saw that, her singing Amazing Grace. And then I was thinking all the time about Scott singing Amazing Grace in the film and how they are two totally different performances. But, you know, they are just, each performance was something of its own. You know, the one that Scott did was a very simple rendition, but you heard every word. And in the context of what had happened in the film, there is so much meaning to it. And what Aretha did, I mean, she was extraordinary. And just, I just had thrills in my inside. So there is so much beauty in A Year of the Quiet Sun. And I remember when we were there filming it and how Scott and Maya worked together. Maya spoke French. She didn't speak English. Scott didn't speak French or Polish, except to say Kudzisz Popelniczka, which means where is the ashtray? He learned that specially. He did Polish lessons before we left with somebody, a girl who was at UCLA teaching Polish. And when the first thing he said to Maya was, Kudzisz Popelniczka. Yes. Let her tell the story.
To było bardzo piękne. Nie wiem, jak wytłumaczyć, stan wojenny był w Polsce. Tak. I Scott zadzwonił i powiedział, gdzie jest Popielniczka. Powiedz. Nie, no powiedz historię. W stanie wojennym zadzwonił.
Okay, so by the time they came to Poland to shoot the film, we had martial law in Poland. I mean, not we, I wasn't there, but they had. So needless to say, the conversations over the phone were recorded and listened to, and there was someone. Rozmowa kontrolowana means that this conversation is under control, and you could hear this in the telephone. And when Scott said,
gdzie jest Popielniczka?
They just thought that this is some kind of a code. And Heavenly said,
jakieś mięso I sałata.
And Heavenly said, jakieś mięso I sałata, which means some meat and salad.
Mój mąż też. My husband as well.
And because of the randomness of this, the government thought that this is some kind of an agent code, and they broke off the connection. And you had to wait for so long to get this phone call. And then they finally managed to do it, and then they hear gdzie jest Popielniczka, and then everything's gone. You have to wait another month for it.
But the other reason, of course, for having this film here is to have Maya and Jerzy here.
Wszystko się powtarza.
Everything sort of repeats itself.
Krzysztof Zanussi miał jakąś intuicję, że poszukał Scotta i mnie i pierwszy raz nas spotkał ze sobą. Myśmy się świetnie w gruncie rzeczy rozumieli, chociaż mówiliśmy innymi językami. No i potem życie dopisało, nasza przyjaźń. Opowiedz.
Everything repeats itself, like me right now. Krzysztof Zanussi, the director, had some kind of an intuition. He searched for Scott and for my grandmother, and he connected them. He put them together and made this and started this story between them.
No i wszystko się, cała nasza przyjaźń Scotta i Heavenly i Scott, mój syn pojechał, twój ojciec pojechał do Los Angeles, mieszkał u nich, potem ja byłam. No a teraz ty, który wtedy nie żyłeś, nie było cię wtedy, jesteś dzisiaj i tłumaczysz mnie, więc koło się zamknęło. Przetłumacz to.
I'm going to do this in the first person as if I was her right now.
No proste.
And this friendship from the film, this feeling from the film, transcendent of the film, went into real life. You can see the fruits of it in the real life because the friendship kept on in this real life. And after the film, my dad went to USA. I'm sorry, I was supposed to do this in first person. My son went into USA and visited Scott and Heavenly and stayed at their house. And then I came there again. And now my grandson is here with me translating. And he wasn't even here when the film was shot. And all those scenes of translation in the film, I hope I'm doing a better work than them.
Bartośmy już dużo mówili, oddajemy innym głos.
Oh, we have talked so much. Let's pass the torch.
Actually, Maya and I had the opportunity. Maya and I had the opportunity to speak very briefly yesterday, and we discovered that we have something in common, and that is we've both been associated with a Polish director named Jerzy Grotowski, who is a very extraordinary figure in theater history. Maya worked with him for, I think, 5 years. I worked with him for more or less a year. And Maya suggested that I ask her about how working with Grotowski prepared her for acting in this particular role. To me, very interesting because Grotowski's work is extremely physical. And in this film, the energy, the actor's energy is very contained. It's very specific. And I'd love for Maya to be able to speak a little bit to that.
Ja myślę, że na całą moją historię w teatrze i filmie Grotowski miał wielki wpływ. Najkrócej mówiąc, Grotowski twierdził, że nasze ciało jest pamięcią, że mamy wszystko zakodowane w ciele i że aktorstwo, twórczość w gruncie rzeczy to jest otwieranie jakby tych miejsc. I myślę, że to jest poza sprawnością fizyczną, bo bardzo dużo lat, dużo godzin dziennie ćwiczyliśmy, więc cała technika, jakby ciało, które służy człowiekowi jeszcze. Grałam w wielu filmach konno i tak dalej. Więc to wszystko jest oczywiście bardzo ważne, ale najważniejsze jest to odwoływanie się do pamięci i zadawanie sobie pytań. Ciągle trzeba się pytać i jeżeli się znajdzie odpowiedź, która nas poprowadzi, to wtedy trzeba odważnie iść w tym kierunku. No i sprawa jakby improwizacji, tego, że są strasznie ważne szczegóły, prawda? Te niedomówienia, te nieskończone gesty, nieskończone słowa. Myśmy o tym wszystkim rozmawiali. Od czego zaczęłam? Że wpływ miała na całą.
Mr. Grotowski had obviously a great influence on my whole career as an actor. What of course, it's important because it was very physical. So I was very agile. I was very physically capable of doing a lot of things that many other people were not able to do. A lot of hours of workouts, physical training. With him gave me the strength to do a lot. He trained me in terms of voice, but the most important and distinct thing in this is that he taught us that every piece, every part of our body has memory. Not that it carries, not that it remembers, but it carries a memory, and then you reach into those parts, you open them up, and they resurface, and then you, by asking yourself questions about it, you reach out to them and you take them out and you relive them. And attention to details, which unfinished sentences. Exactly, in this film we have the connection, the dialogue without the words, which there is the will to communicate, but the inability, is that a word? All right. So this is a dualism, and this is a contradiction, which is art.
A najważniejsza u Grotowskiego między innymi to jest sprawa sprzeczności. To, co w życiu robimy ciągle, prawda, że coś jest z czymś sprzeczne i to daje siłę i energię.
And this contradiction of which I spoke is the most important part of working with Grotowski, because this is what happens in real life all the time. We are contradictory animals.
Just can I just follow up? I'd love to know how this technique and your work in the film related to Scott, who came from a very different acting tradition, and how you were able to work together or play off of each other, with that difference also adding to the interplay, the contradiction, the feelings, the emotion, the unspoken.
I can tell you one thing. One of Scott's first acting teachers actually had studied with that great French mime. So there was a lot of that tradition that he was able to benefit from. But he was always able to speak to the audience without words. When you watch Walking Dead, Herschel, and there's a lot of footage of Herschel in the background, and he never had a word to say, but the camera people knew that he was present. He was, he was there, and he was communicating so much. And of course, when you see the scenes of Maya and Scott, they don't need words either. I mean, when Maya walks, there is so much dignity in Amelia, in the way, through her tragedy, through her sadness at not going with, knowing she wasn't going, and knowing what it would do to Norman.
Tak.
You understood that one, right?
Yeah.
Ja myślę, że jeżeli człowieka czuje tak jak w życiu, to szkoły wszystkie są nieważne. Po prostu albo się czuje, albo nie. Tu nie ma różnicy w szkole. Po prostu czuliśmy siebie.
When one person feels another one, the school doesn't exist. There is no school, there is no training. There is just acting. There is just a feeling.
Jakby byliśmy otwarci na szukanie siebie.
We were open to searching for each other.
Ja bym strasznie chciała, żeby Pan coś powiedział.
She would like you to speak now.
I don't understand the word you're saying, but I could watch you say it for days and days and days. Because you communicate so much passion, so much emotion. But we have Todd over here. He can ask a question.
Well, this movie resolves one of its central tensions with dance and fantasy. And that's so meaningful because the previous dance at the event is very tense. And then to have the companion piece for the John Ford setting and so forth is such a rich and an imaginative choice. You know, dance doesn't, you don't have to be verbally perfect to dance. Dance requires coordination and passion, and it's just such a beautiful.
And you know, when we were going to Monument Valley, we were in car with a lot of seats, and Schwavik was in the back, and Maya and I were there, and Scott, and everybody was saying, "What are we going to do when we get there? What are we going to do when we get there?" And Maya said, "We'll work it out. We'll do it when we get there." And that dance just came up. These surroundings, I don't know what it was. I think it was Maya's suggestion that they dance. And they did that one wonderful dance. Because she's the dancer. Scott would always turn me down when I asked him to dance. But he danced for Maya.
Ale bardzo ważne, skojarzyło mi się pana pytanie, pana zdanie. Ja miałam bardzo dużo telefonów i dzwonili do mnie ludzie prywatni i mówili, dlaczego ty nie pojechałaś? Mieli do mnie pretensje. Ja mówię, to Zanussi.
What you said reminded me about the fact that after the film was out, I received a lot of phone calls of people complaining to me that I didn't go to him. Why didn't you go? Why didn't you? He loved you so much.
A ja mówię, to pan Zanussi.
It wasn't me, it was Mr. Zanussi.
Ja bym pojechała natychmiast.
I would have gone on the spot, right then and now.
I na szczęście w marzeniu tańczymy i znajdujemy się. A poza tym prywatnie ja przyjechałam do Scotta i Heleny.
Luckily, in the dream, we are dancing. And by the way, I came to the USA personally afterwards, so.
Yes, that's right. And joined us.
You have another question?
This film depicts a time in Poland that was extremely sad and difficult, and it gives us access to understand that. Even the time when it was made, which is years after the actual events, Poland was going through a period of very heavy censorship.
It was
repression.
84.
Exactly. So my question is how things have evolved in Poland. Are they now? Is it now easier? Is theater as highly respected, as highly respected as a means of communication, as a means of, and film too, I'm sorry to say theater, but as a means to communicate humanity and draw the humanity into daily life?
That's a question.
No ale to można by książkę napisać.
You could write a book about this stuff.
Jak to powiedzieć krótko? No, film i teatr jest szanowany. Najlepszy dowód dzisiejszy film Zimna wojna, prawda?
Okay.
No mów.
Cinema and theater is still very much respected. The Cold War, which we have had a chance to see today, is the greatest proof of that.
To jest ostatnie lata kinematografii, to jest jeden z najciekawszych to jest jeden z najciekawszych okresów.
The recent few years of cinema is one of the most interesting times in Polish cinema.
No i mieliśmy szczęście, że mieliśmy takich reżyserów jak Andrzeja Wajdę, który niestety już nie żyje.
We've had so much luck that we had
Ale jego filmy żyją.
That we had directors like Andrzej Wajda, who unfortunately
Krzysztof Zanussi, Kieślowski,
who unfortunately is no longer with us. But also Krzysztof Kieślowski, Krzysztof Zanussi.
Tak, to cała wielka lista, Konwicki.
A gigantic list, Konwicki, of people.
Nie chcę Państwa tym męczyć, ale to jest bardzo ciekawy okres i w teatrze, i trudniej w polityce, ale o tym lepiej nie mówić.
It's a very interesting and creative time in Polish theater and cinema. It's somewhat worse in the politics, but we shouldn't talk about this now.
An image that I see in both Cold War and in your film, and to me is always a symbol of the Second World War and the troubles that followed, is the train. The opening scene of this film takes place on a train. Scott at the end is waiting at a train station. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of trains at this particular point in Polish history?
To jest bardzo trudny temat. Historia ciągle się powtarza. Idziemy naprzód, ale ciągle się tych okresy, gdzie każdy z nas potrzebuje wolności, prawda? Wolności. I z tym ciągle są problemy. Wspaniały okres Solidarności, który powstał. Cała historia, która była wspaniała. No a pociąg to właśnie jest, że mimo wszystko idziemy naprzód, jedziemy, że ta historia się zmienia, ale się posuwamy naprzód. Myślę, że tak można to rozumieć, że ten pociąg historii idzie naprzód. Mimo że jest pełno, nie wiem jak to wytłumaczyć, to jest bardzo trudno powiedzieć. Pociąg idzie naprzód, mimo że ciągle jest ciężko, ciągle przeżywamy te okresy, ale idziemy naprzód, jedziemy. Historia idzie dalej.
This is a very, very difficult subject because the story again repeats itself, and we face the same problems every time it does, and but there is another side of this discussion, is that the train also means that we are still moving forward, and that history is moving forward, and we are still here, we are still living, we are still moving.
Historia po prostu jest bardzo nasza dramatyczna.
The history of us of our country is very, very dramatic.
Ciągle się podnosimy.
We need to keep getting up.
Let's open up to a few questions from the audience.
We have a question right here to your right.
The film was quite moving. Could someone say some more about the actor that played the mother, the background of her, and also her character and her role?
Tak, to wspaniała, nie żyje już dawno, wspaniała aktorka, która, to widać w niej, ona się chyba urodziła w Wilnie, w każdym razie na wschodzie. Bardzo wspaniały człowiek, szeroki, i kiedy była historia Polski, nie wiem czy tutaj znają, na Solidarności, to ona wtedy bardzo działała w opozycji. Ja jeździłam do więzień przez całą Polskę przejeżdżałam. Ona też pracowała właśnie protestowaliśmy tak, jak mogliśmy w stanie wojennym właśnie. I ona była bardzo, bardzo dzielna, bardzo dzielna. Wspaniały człowiek.
She was a very great person. She came from the Eastern Europe, possibly Lithuania. She's not sure. And by the time we don't know exactly how much you know about this part of history, but when the communism was about to go down and we had solidarity in Poland, she was one of the people, together with my grandmother, who were protesting against the by the time existing government. And my grandmother was when the lady we are talking about now. Skarżanka was the name of the actress. When she was protesting, my grandmother was visiting jails where there were the prisoners of communism. So she was a great person. She's not with us anymore, unfortunately, but she carried a lot of weight on her shoulders.
I remember Hanka very well. She was a lovely lady, and we had, even with, well, she couldn't speak English and I couldn't speak Polish, but we communicated. We looked at each other and we had meals together. You know, I really liked her a lot.
She added, again, we talked during Cold War about the use of humor in these films. They're dealing with very serious and difficult subjects.
Tak. Właśnie wspaniale, że pan to zwrócił na to uwagę, bo właśnie ten śmiech, Hanka miała taki zaraźliwy śmiech, miała wielkie poczucie humoru właśnie w tych trudnych czasach. Dziękuję, że pan to powiedział, bo to dokładnie tak.
Thank you for mentioning that, because that's actually very on the topic with the last question. The laughter of the character of Mother was so contagious, and it was the only way to escape this reality. And even though it was very dark and very everything was so bad there, the laughter was their escape. Even though they didn't even talk to each other, they were still laughing together.
Another question?
Ja myślę, że tak trudno jest pytać, ja tak się zawsze martwię o państwa, dlatego że nie ma nic trudniejszego niż zadawać pytania, więc ja zawsze asekuruję ludzi i mówię, że nie szkodzi, że się nie będziemy martwić, jak nie będą pytać, ale jak ktoś będzie chciał.
She's always very worried about the questions from the audience because nobody likes to ask those questions, and she's telling you not to worry because if you don't ask questions, she got you. She got you covered.
Yes, from the balcony in the middle.
First, I love the film. Unfortunately, I will have a hard time forever not being able to, well, I will always associate Scott Wilson with Bill Hickok. I'm sorry about that. And my question really is just about, is there an explanation to the title of the movie? I'm not sure that I could figure that out.
Well, shall I do this? Yeah. You know, Christoph, in his former life, before he became a film director, was a physicist. And I think that was the real reason why he chose to use the symbolism of the quiet sun, which is, I don't know if there are any scientists in the audience that know about this, but there's a certain cycle where there are many explosions on the sun. That's 1 year, and I don't know how many years it takes to get to that 1 year, but that is called a quiet sun. Somebody had a sense of humor, I think, amongst the physicists, and they used that expression for it. But that's all I know about it. Christoph never really explained why he chose to call it that, but I know it was always on his mind right from the beginning to use the quiet sun in the title.
Dlaczego spokojne słońce?
Why this quiet sun?
Yeah, yeah.
So does she have anything to say about that?
Nie pytałam nigdy Krzysztofa o to, ale myślę, że nie wiem, Krzysztof uważa, że to jest rok spokojnego słońca. Dla mnie on nie był spokojny.
I never asked him about why he chose this title. He believed that this was the year of the quiet sun, but I thought it was not quiet at all.
Dla mnie nie był spokojny.
It wasn't, for me, it wasn't quiet.
I suppose you could say there was some connection to, wartime and the explosions of war, but he never actually said that to me. I just thought of that.
But no matter what it means, it's a beautiful title. We have time for a couple more questions.
Okay, we got one to your right, a little bit to the center here.
Okay. Hello? No. So the question I have is, what were the politics of the film when it actually came out, the season that the film came out? Because at that period of time in Poland, it was really deep in the heart of the Cold War. The Catholic Church was kind of the home of free Poland. We had a Polish Pope. There was a lot that was going on under the surface about to bubble up. And it was very interesting to hear you talk about your role in what was in effect the resistance. So I wonder if you could speak to the actual politics of that movie and how it affected the politics of the time, the season it actually came out.
It was really a very difficult time for Poland, and when we went there, there was practically nothing for people on the shop shelves, even the shop for the elite, that was supposed to be better stocked. I'll let Haya talk.
Ja myślę, że ten film, nie wiem, wydaje mi się, że to był, trudno mi precyzyjnie na to odpowiedzieć. Ten film była wielka radość, kiedy ten film zdobywał wielkie sukcesy na świecie. Więc z tego się oczywiście cieszono. Natomiast myślę, że ja nie wiem, czy nie potrafię powiedzieć, jak władza reagowała. Ja wiem, jak ona teraz reaguje. Jak wtedy reagowała, mi się wydaje, że myśmy nie mieli jakichś wtedy kłopotów z tym filmem, że to było dobrze przyjęte. Nie wiem, czy panu o to chodziło, ale...
We're not sure if this is what you mean by the question. This is difficult this is a difficult task to say precisely. It was known that this film was well received throughout the whole world, and in general there was happiness because of that in Poland. The politics was, for my grandmother at the time, a bit mysterious in the ways that she didn't know how they actually reacted to that. There was martial law, which paralyzed a gigantic part of lives of every person living there, but it was not easy to even consider art and this at the time.
Ja myślę, że może to jest ważne, że to był okres wybuch Solidarności, wpływ Ojca Świętego był wtedy wielki na to wszystko, co się działo, prawda? I potem był ten stan wojenny. I w stanie wojennym wszyscy się jakby połączyli. To było bardzo ważne, tylko to był prosty czas, bo to było czarno-białe, prawda? Byli komuniści i byliśmy my, Solidarność. Potem się to wszystko zmieniało, prawda? Już teraz jest trudniej paradoksalnie. Wtedyśmy byli bardzo zjednoczeni wszyscy.
There was a moment when the solidarity broke out, and when John Paul II was the kind of unofficial leader also of that, or just a very strong point of reference. But there was a time when it became very simple, because you knew who the bad guy and who the good guy was. There were the communists and there were us. And for that time it was really easy. Somehow today it's more complicated and difficult than at that time in the past.
Can I add?
W stanie wojennym aktorzy to nie grali poza jakimiś wyjątkami. Był protest całego świata teatralnego, filmowego. Myśmy nie pracowali. Akurat jeździłam do więzień, ale moi koledzy, którzy nawet nie jeździli, nie pracowali w teatrze ani w telewizji. Znaczy środki masowego przekazu, telewizja, radio, myśmy wyłączyli. Może o telewizji i radiu trzeba.
The artists, the actors were protesting against the aggressive oppression of Poland, of Polish citizens, and for a time they stopped acting at all. Even those who didn't go to visit the prisoners in the communist jails, even they just stopped working for the time. They wouldn't cooperate with the television and radio at all.
Can I just add something? I wasn't living in Poland at the time, but I did spend quite a bit of time in Poland back then. And one of my observations was that the spoken word was very heavily censored, that art existed very often symbolically. In theater, in film, there were slogans. You'll notice in this particular film, there was writing on the walls. Outside of her house was German, Lieben, and this has a meaning in Poland that we probably don't understand, because we have not experienced that kind of censorship, heavy censorship. I think that there's also some bearing here, because the two of them could not communicate, they could not speak. And so what happened between them was nonverbal. And very often, the nonverbal part of artistic expression was actually a subversive expression against the regime. And if it became spoken, if it became not subversive, but actually people were really in danger because of that. So that's just my observation, if it helps.
Yes, it does, and she appreciates it.
Yeah, the same thing happened. I mean, all the great films of the 50s, 60s, and 70s that came out of Eastern Europe were all subversive in one way or another. And that led to really extraordinary creativity to overcome the censorship that the state insisted on. Let's take one last question.
One last question to your left, up front.
Hi. Thank you very much. I enjoyed the movie thoroughly. I am very curious about two scenes in the movie. One scene where it was a flashback, Norman's flashback to I think it was a bridge that they were on. And then the second scene where he was together with, was it Fritz? And in the dinner party when Norman was asking Fritz, how do you say this in German? How do you say turn around in German?
Oh, yes, Vadim Glavner, the German in the lobby of the
Yes, can
building.
you address the two scenes?
I can't remember his name now, the character's name. Herman, I think. I think that's it. It's in the magazine. Sorry, what was the question?
About the flashback to where the German officers, where he was a prisoner on the bridge.
Oh, yes, that was the first flashback. And then you wanted to know about his experience with the German citizen in the building, and was he? Oh, are you asking
The connection between
the connection between them? Yes, I think Norman in that. Well, I don't know if I should speak for the script, but it was a kind of a flashback where Norman is remembering his experience with the Nazis, that terrible experience that he had, which affected him because it was the reason that he felt there was nothing for him back home, because he was an empty man, he said, and then he met Amelia. But I think he was kind of turning the tables. I'm sure did you get that? That he was kind of turning the tables and getting his own back, and therefore standing up as a man, whereas he felt so humiliated in the dream sequence as a prisoner and being with his pants, having soiled his pants. So now he could stand up to them and let them have it.
So, I just want to thank you so much for coming all this way to be with us. It's such an honor, and Heavenly, the same for coming and being with us tonight.
Thank you for
so much.
inviting us.